Hey, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Writer's Bookshelf. So today we're going to go back to visiting our Thesauruses that we were discussing a few weeks ago with the emotions Thesaurus and all the characterization Thesauruses. Today we're going to actually focus on the two setting books. So that's going to be the urban Thesaurus, urban setting Thesaurus, and then the rural setting Thesaurus. So these books, they go together. They were released at the same time. In the if you go to One Stop for Writers, they're marketed as setting. That's the setting Thesaurus. So they don't divide them there, but in the books they do, because it's the difference between your city spaces and then your nature spaces. And so that's basically what we're going to look at. So we're going to start with the urban setting book here. Now, if you're familiar with these settings or with the Thesauruses in general, the way they work is first of all, you have a few pages in the beginning that give you the essays, and they just kind of tell you why this matters. And so we're going to talk about why setting matters. And if you watched our video about the active setting book from last week, you'll know that setting is a character in of itself, and then also you need to be able to master setting in order to tell a story that's believable and authentic to not only the character, but the character situation. Because again, like if your whole story is about a shark terrorizing a New England town, or I don't know wherever Jaws takes place. If Jaws is set in the mountains of Wyoming, it's not going to be the same story. It'll be a very odd story. The best you might get out of it is a Sharknado, maybe, but odds are you're going to have a pretty weak shark, because a shark can't move around in the mountains very well unless he's tumbling down the hill. And I don't think Jaws is going to do that. I think Jaws is going to be pretty much pretty happy to be in the ocean, eating people there. So, if Jaws were set in the mountains, it wouldn't work. So you need the ocean, you need the seaside, and then you need the seaside culture, right? You need to have, Sheriff Brody has to be somebody who naturally fits a coastal region town that's not necessarily a big town. Well, I guess it could be, but you certainly need one that has tourists. You need to have that conflict of summer. You need to have that conflict of people, ready to go out and enjoy, the fun of the sand and water. And, he's going to be kind of the stick in the mud, because, he's the guy who's like, no, you can't have fun today. There's a shark out there. That shark has got teeth. And again, it only works in a setting where there's a coastal environment, a coastal climate, coastal line of thinking and train of thought and all that stuff. You leave that behind, you don't have a story that works anymore. At least not a Jaws story. Now you might have a Jurassic Park story, maybe. You might have a grizzly bear story. I don't know what they have in Wyoming. I've never been there, but whatever big thing with fangs and claws that lives in Wyoming, you might still be able to get that story, but you have to set it in the woods or on the mountain or in the field. Have the mutant cow attack of the mutant cows. The setting makes it authentic, and if you're struggling to decide where your story should even begin, that's where these will come in handy. So again, they're going to talk about in both books. I'll just show you again. The rural has it too. They've got the all the endless essays of why setting matters, and in this particular case, why actually I think this one's got repeat. This one may actually have the same essays in both. Setting as a vehicle for characterization. Actually, let's look at the index real quick. Sometimes the story is in the table of contents. No, they're different. Okay, never mind. Yeah, they both have different essays, so you're actually getting like 80 pages of setting material in two individual books here, which is a great compliment to the book we talked about last time. So again, getting these two with that, you'll learn all you need to know about active setting. But once you decide that you have a story idea in mind, you do want to find the best place for it to fit. So like if you want it to take place in a city, then what you're going to do is you're going to go into the Urban Dictionary for an example of a city location that might serve as a good example for your conflict. So in this example, we always do a random page. So this page we're going to do is the car wash, And the car wash, I think, might actually be one of the free ones on Writers Helping Writers. If you go to the dictionary, there's a few of these that they open for free, that's unlocked for free, and I think car wash is one of them. So you could actually read along with me if you wanted to. But in this case, what they do in the settings, Thesaurus, is they start with the sites of the city of that particular item. So for a car wash, you're going to see drive-up bays, corrugated metal walls or plastic splash curtains between the bays, concrete, flashing green lights and red lights, ticket booth, an attendant or an automated pay portal for transactions, and so on. They're going to give you a full description of what it looks like, so you have something to fall back on when you go through and you create your scene. That way you have there's specific things you can zero in on if you need to. Again, if the setting is not unusual, if it's just like a common car wash, you don't need to over explain it. You're really only going to add in the details that might be unique to that particular car wash. But if you're still going to have your character interact with elements within the car wash, then knowing what the car wash has does help. You have the sounds, so the blast of the sprayer, automatic doors rising and lowering, the ding of the timer going off on the soap dispenser, echoing voices as parents yell at their kids to close the window or the door. That's fun if they don't close it. The splat and plop of suds and dirt sliding down the car and landing on the concrete, dripping water, the gurgle of the drainage systems, cars, and so on. You see what they're doing here is they're giving you these sound cues as background. It's another way to not only make the scene authentic, but it's also a good way for the scene to blend in. So if you do have the background sounds, they don't have to intrude on what's happening in the scene, but they can still lend, again, that backdrop of authenticity of what's going on without interrupting the action or the flow. So that's pretty good. So they also smells, taste, textures, and sensations. And again, it's just the same thing. They give you a list of that. And then what they do is they give you the possible sources of conflict. So this is important because, again, conflict is what makes the story, and without the conflict, you've got no story. So the fact that you can use a car wash as a source of conflict, should hopefully be interesting to you. It would be to your reader. But here are ways you can make it conflicting. Chemicals or poor equipment maintenance that damages or scratches one's paint job. Vin Diesel's Fast and Furious 10, which I still want them to make a Fast and Furious called F and Furious. And if I ever put my book Teenage American Dream out, you'll get to find out more about F and Furious. That's something you don't want to see happen to a Vin Diesel vehicle in a Fast and Furious movie. Because it's all about two things. It's all about family and it's all about the paint job. No, I'm kidding. It's all about the cars. But still, the cars look nice, and you don't want to damage them unless that's part of the plot. A car that refuses to start after the washing is complete. Ooh. If they get stuck, that's bad. Something disturbing falling out of the front grille as one hoses it off, like a bloody dog collar or a clot of hair. So, you get the idea. So it also has people commonly found here. So you have your employees, car wash manager, vehicle owners, and passengers. And then you have the related settings that may tie in with this one. So this is the section where they give you references to other places. Now, it's worth noting that they will cross-reference both books here. Now, in this particular example, all the cross-references are within the urban. But it's not unusual to see urban and rural combined. I do think they tell you the difference. If I can find an example. Do they do that? Yes, they do. In the event of a difference between the settings, they will tell you which book to find it in. So I don't know if you can see that. It's pretty blurry from my end, but you see rural and urban up and down there. That was the flower shop example. So yeah, if there's no labeling, then you can assume it's in the same volume. Otherwise, they'll tell you which volume to go to, and then they give you the page number. Setting notes and tips. Manual car washes may look different depending on how old they are and whether they are standalone business or belong with a gas station. Some may have a drive-in lane system where one pays and then waits for a single roll-up door to open as a bay inside empties. Others will have bays that stretch out in a row, and the vehicle simply chooses an empty stall, drives in, or waits for the current vehicle using it to vacate, and so on. So in other words, what they're doing is they're giving you something to kind of work with as an understanding of how this operates, so that if you do decide to integrate a car wash into your scene, you'll have some ideas to work with to make it authentic. Not that you're going to rely on all those elements, because when it comes to research, you're not going to use everything that's in front of you, but just knowing what to expect will give you an opportunity to kind of meter out your scene a little bit, so that let's say if a car pulls in, it might help you to kind of gauge how long it takes for that car to leave, and your conversation may be weighted by that, as an example. Setting description example. So Trevor pulled up in his Z28, but the bay was occupied, so he shifted to neutral and cranked up the tunes. Ahead, some old guy was hosing down his Hummer, throwing up gouts of spray. The dirt sloughed off, giving way to bright red paint. Globs of mud and gravel fell from the bumper in giant clumps, and Trevor nodded and impressed. He had to give Grandpa more props. Wherever he'd gone off-roading in between his old people routine and dropping the kids at daycare, working a 9-to-5er, he'd managed to bring half the mountain back with him. And that's where he can bring it back from Wyoming, I guess. And so they have also techniques and devices used, so that's contrast and hyperbole, and then the resulting effects is characterization. So that's an example of what you might find in the urban setting, the Thesaurus, and the I believe the rural does pretty much the same thing. We'll just flip to random here. We're going to go to the science lab on this one. This one has, it's all the same stuff. So really the difference between the two then, it's in the subtitle. This is the Writer's Guide to City Spaces. This is the Writer's Guide to Personal and Natural Spaces. So an example of some of the ones you're going to find in the urban setting include, and by the way, the index is by divisions, like the emotion thesaurus, or the emotional wound thesauruses. So like you'll find that you have restaurants over here, you've got retail stores over here, and just an example of restaurants that they have in there would include bakery, bar, casual dining restaurant, coffee house, deli, diner, fast food restaurant, ice cream parlor, and pub. An example of some retail stores are antiques shops, bazaar, bookstore, convenience store, flower shop, grocery store, hardware store, and so on. It's important to remember that these books are as thick as they are. They're clearly not unlimited. Not every job or every place you're looking for will be featured. Some things you might even consider obvious that aren't in here. This is really a primer of giving you a way to not only have an easy access to what they have researched for you, but it's also a way for you to use their templates as a means to populate your own ideas for your own setting. So if you did want to do, let's say, an urban setting for, I think they do have one on rooftops, but I don't think it's in the print edition. I think you have to go on their online dictionary for rooftops, I believe. Yeah, I don't see rooftops on here, but I think there is a section for rooftops on the online store. Not online store, the online Thesaurus. So that might be an example of something that you may not get here, but you can get somewhere. And then there's other things where you may not find anywhere, including the online. This is where you do want to kind of use their template as a means to research the setting yourself if you can get access to it. So if you do want to stake out the Ninja Turtle lair, you'll notice you have to come up with some kind of inner sanctum in a sewer, and then of course use your imagination what that might be. So that said, just some things again for the rural settings. You have things that are at home, at school, rural sites, and then nature and landforms. So some examples of rural sites include abandoned mine, ancient ruins, archery range, barn, beach party, campsite, church, country road, county fair, farm, and farmer's market, to name a few. If you go back to the home stuff, you've got attic, backyard, basement, bathroom, birthday party, block party, bomb shelter, and so on. So it's really just a really hefty resource of not just of locations, but it breaks down the 5 senses. It breaks down all the ways in which you can use that setting to your advantage. And if you incorporate it with the book we did last week with active settings, you can really pack a punch in your writing just by showing your characters involved in scenes that matter and involved in places that matter. And then, as I was saying too in our earlier videos with the Thesauruses, is that if you go to One Stop for Writers, which is where the online dictionary, or I keep saying dictionary, the online Thesauruses are, it's $9 a month, $50 for 6 months, or $90 for a year. You'll have access to all of their Thesauruses, including the ones that are not in print. And the thing to remember about that is that they will occasionally update a category with a new entry, even though it might be like years later. That is not going to go into the print book. So that's one advantage of having the online access, is that you can have access to that entry in real time. The other thing is not every thesaurus gets a print version. It depends on how long it is or how popular the idea is. So something like their colors thesaurus, it's only, I think, maybe 12 colors that they're offering, and it's, you're not going to get a whole book out of that. And the entries are short, so that's something that's going to be online only, unless they do like a combination of colors, textures, shapes, and which I actually suggested they do, but I don't know if they're going to do it. But unless you're going to get like the full combo of their short topics in one print edition, that's going to be another reason why you're going to want to just get the online access. But again, I have the print books for a reason. I like print. I like being able to have access to it from my shelf. I like to not have to pay extra money for them. Once I have them forever, or until the pages fall out of the spine. But with online, I mean, it's going to be subscription. So to have constant access to that, you'll have to pay for it constantly. And so that's sort of the way that you have to balance out. But that said, the other advantage of doing the online version is you'll have access to the character creator. And why does it matter? When there's so many character creators out there, why is they're so special? And I do hope to do a video on this one of these days. But what makes them special, quite honestly, is they integrate the sources into the creator. So if you have your character working at a particular location, like let's say they're a bartender who works at a bar, I mean, you're going to be able to access the source entry for those items while you're creating your character, so you have a clearer picture of what their environment is when they're working. It's also, I think, more useful when you deal with like the backstory elements, like the emotional wounds, or the sources that don't have paper versions, like the character motivations and conflict and all of that. There's just a lot more you can get out of it by doing the online, but if your process does not include that kind of work, by all means, the print book I think is just as good, and that's again what I use. But overall, I think, as I said in the previous video, I think you should get all the Thesauruses, partly because they all interact with each other, but also because they're just valuable. And yeah, they're not going to cover everything that there is to cover, but they're good launching points. They're good ways to get you into the mindset of pushing ahead and coming up with something unique for your story. So again, this week it's the urban and rural thesaurus, and I actually think the rural comes first. I think rural is technically the first book in the series, and urban I believe follows. But I don't know. I always want to put the urban one first, but whatever. It doesn't matter. You get them together. They work together. They're in tandem. Getting just one doesn't make any sense. You really need both if you're going to get either. And then the way they incorporate with other thesauruses, like in particular the occupation thesaurus, but really all of them, I think it's just there's a fine network going on there. So I do think, once again, I've said it in the other videos, I'll say it again here too, you should get all the thesaurus. And this for now covers all the ones that they've offered as of this recording. Again, as I said in previous videos, if they ever produce another one, I'll do a special on it, even if it's a bonus episode. I'm still hoping that they'll do character motivations. I would like to see the conflict thesaurus as an example. The one they're doing now on relationships I think would be good. But overall, they're worth looking into if you haven't yet. By now I hope you've checked them out. but they definitely need to be on your list of resources. So next week we're gonna do something a little unusual. And now, in full disclosure, I did not finish reading the book that I'm going to cover, and I don't know that I will finish it for the video because I don't think I need to. So I'm going to take the chance that it's good enough to cover now, but I have a reason for wanting to even include it. It's not technically a writer book, but I do think it's a good time to talk about. Come back next week and I'll talk more about it. But there's something I want to address in the writer space that I think is important, and I think this book will do a good job helping me address that. So if you come back next week, we'll talk more about it. It will be still technically in the settings category, but it's a little bit more to it than that. Lastly, don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the things that YouTubers tell you to do. Make sure you talk about your book if you want to. Make sure you check out my website, jeremybursey.com, for more information about me, my work, my books, ways you can support me in this channel if you are so inclined. Don't forget to share this with your friends, your other writer friends, your writing groups. I haven't really said that much in my previous videos, but maybe I should be telling you that. Share the video because, again, this is all helpful stuff. These are books that I'm recommending because I think they're useful in some way or another. I don't believe that every book is needed for every author, and so I do hope that I'm giving you enough information to make that decision on whether or not you actually need this book. Although I think this one you need, and this one, and the other ones like it. But I do want to make sure that we understand that this is not just a thing that's filling up space. I hope that you realize that your education matters. Your constant learning of new tactics, new ways of approaching your work is helpful. And that even if you take this in college, and I don't know what level you're at. I don't know if you're in high school, looking to get a creative writing degree, or if you're looking to change careers, or if you're just someone kind of in the twilight years looking to make a little extra income, and maybe you spent your whole life working your main career, and you think, well, now is the time to kind of go do my dream, and my dream is to write a novel. That's all awesome. The books will help you do it well, because our life experience isn't going to be enough to draw upon in order to tell a good story. We still got to know how to do it the way that readers are looking for. The way that structure depends on it. And so all these little techniques and things that we cover definitely makes it easier to know where we're going. It doesn't make the job easier to do. Don't, by no mistake, think that these books are gonna make your job easier. If anything, they're going to make it a lot harder, because now you're going to know what to do. Now you're going to know what you have to do. Now you're responsible for doing the right thing. And that's the big secret of these videos, is now you're accountable to do the right thing because you've been exposed to the to the resource. But they're still valuable, and you should totally check out the books, but then learn from them and then practice what they teach you. And hopefully, again, you're going to be a success at what you do. But do send us your author site if you have one you want us to look at. And then check mine out too, because that helps bring out more content. It helps me decide whether or not to do a season 3. I want to do a season 3, but it's going to cost money because half the books I want to do I don't own yet. So every little bit helps me help you. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, that's all for today. Come back next week. We'll do another interesting book, and then we may take another short break after that. I'm not sure. There's going to probably be one more small break, depending on whether or not I already did the. What I want to do is I want to do a couple software videos again, specifically on map making, because while we're in the settings section, I want to talk about how to actively create scenes in a way that is practical to your process. So before I get too deep into the rest of the season, I do want to break again to cover a couple things that might be of benefit to you, especially if you're of a designer's mind. But even if you're not, it's still a good way to practice. And I do have proof that this is a good thing. I think it was Active Settings that mentioned it, or maybe it's something I saw online. Oh, no. It's the... I think it's there's another book that I'm prepping for this season that's going to be in a few weeks. that I think has mentioned it, but they talk about fleshing out the scene visually so that you can write about it more authentically. And so that's sort of the point of why I want to do these map making programs as a resource in the next couple of weeks, I think. So there will be another small break before we go to the rest of the end of the season. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent now, but yeah, just come on back and we'll pick up from there. But thanks again for sticking around, and we'll see you next time. All right, thanks. Bye.